Yeah, we're taking another look at Marabu. Yes, this one actually is ink. It says it here on the packaging. I'm not going to call paint ink again. I'm not that stupid, but hey, don't underestimate me. It's going to be a tough video. Roll the intro. Last time we took a look at some watercolor ink, it was the Ecoline watercolor markers, and I quite enjoyed my time using them. Today we're taking a look at Marabu Aqua ink. This is a watercolor ink, and it was cheap at Michael's. Now, I have used Marabu before. Many of you guys may remember the fact that I used their glass ink, and I thought it was glass paint, and it was not a pleasant experience. Sarah did, however, like the glass I gave her, so hey, that's something. This is pretty much the exact same bottle that the glass ink was in. Just a barcode, some instructions, the name of the product, logo, and it's in a simple little glass container. Now this is Black Noir 073. We're going to open up and test it. Normally we would use the Batman sketchbook, but I, like I said in the intro, am not a total idiot, and as you saw, I have a piece of Bristol board we're going to use. You know, I've often complained a lot about how inkwells come with an eyeglass dropper, and how it's kind of annoying using a dip pen. For this, I actually can kind of see the use of an eyedropper. What I'm going to do is actually use this ink syringe I have to take the ink out of the bottle and put it onto the Bristol board, spread it around, and then we'll use some water to test that out. So I'm really curious. Hey, I kind of made an eyeball. Okay, it's pretty smooth actually. It's more smooth than their paint, so that's good. I don't hate it. Definitely getting a lot more streaks as I keep messing with it. Let's add some water and see how that's going to go. I think the best way to do that is to actually use our syringe again and introduce it. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if this warped the paper. That's kind of interesting. That's kind of cool. Oh, it's on the table. Why did I do this? You know what? We're committed. That's kind of cool. I actually kind of like it. Oh god, it's getting everywhere. Actually, hold up, I just discovered something. Hold up, let me try something. Oh, that's cool. I actually kind of like that. I like the texture, so we could use that. Let's use our dip pen real quick to test it. Dip number 1. That's not bad. That's a lot better than their paint ink. I called it ink again. It's better than their glass paint. I really like how the ink didn't stick to the nib. It had a great flow. Now that means I'm not going to get super long lines. However, I think that's a good trade-off because the nibs are much easier to clean with that. The brush spread out really good. I really like the brush, so we're definitely going to use the brush. The syringe adding in the ink and the water to mix them, that worked really well. In fact, I really like this accidental discovery because this, combined with the texture that is given to it with the rag, actually really helps. And I can think of a few... I can really think of a good use for this, especially with the illustration I have in mind. I want to try one more test now that I think about it. Okay, so I have some Q-tips here. I want to try something that I think would be really kind of interesting. So let's take our ink. Yeah, we can definitely use this. I really like this texture. Okay, so let me explain what our illustration is going to be because I keep alluding to it. A lot of the time for the channel, my free time in between editing or waiting for videos to publish isn't actually spent reading comics. A good chunk is, but not all of it. And most of my free time is actually spent doing illustrations. Obviously, I like to draw, but they're usually for the channel and they're for different projects. Usually it's like a character I really want to draw, an original character I like to draw. I really want to draw this one thing for some reason, but a good chunk of them are for reviews, and most of the time I'll do an illustration for a specific review, for a specific ink. For this ink, I had a very specific idea for, and that was an illustration of me and Sarah's favorite cryptid of all time, Mothman, our favorite American legend. And I have been wanting to illustrate this dude for a while, and I think I actually have found, surprisingly, the perfect ink for that with the perfect technique. So I'm going to end up using just Q-tips and water to do this illustration. So not only am I going to only use this ink, possibly some white ink if I mess up, but I will be only using Q-tips. I will allow myself to use the syringe if needed, so I think that's also another fair piece. And of course water and my rag. So that's going to be the set of rules for this illustration. I'm going to have a lot of fun doing this. I think this is going to be absolutely awesome. And yeah, let's sit back, roll that time lapse, and I'm going to enjoy drawing Mothman. And thus began. First, I wasn't getting the results I wanted, and I was not happy with this, but I kept going and persevering, and I found out that I could easily layer the ink. I didn't even have to wait for it to fully dry. I slowly kept building up the ink layer by layer, purposely keeping the artwork messy to go with the traditional depictions of Mothman. I kept it loose and just kept working at it with my basic penciling in mind, slowly building up the shapes I wanted with the contrast I needed. Then when everything was built up to just the right point, I wiped the board clean and started over, giving the entire piece of paper a great gradient, and just kept building up the layers more and more, slowly but surely. I started to use my ink needle more and more, not just for water, but to spread out the ink as well, and quickly learned that I could open and close it rapidly to create kind of a makeshift airbrush, as there was remainders of the ink as all of it wasn't shooting out. That quickly gave it more texture, and gave it a look that I was really happy with. I kept doing that, and used it to its fullest, and really makes me want to start using airbrushes more. You know what? That's going to be a fun drawing challenge to do in the future, but not today. But I kept working at it, using the Q-tips more and more to build up my layers and give it the rough texture. When I was finally happy, I had a piece of artwork that looked awesome. And we're done, guys. This was a fun piece that I really enjoyed doing. It was just so different from what I normally do. And yeah, I did use some white ink to touch up the eyes. But you know what? Besides that, I think I followed the rules pretty well. And I really enjoyed the creative process for this, even though I did stain my desk. Yes, the artwork is pretty warped, but that's par for the course using these types of inks, so I'm not going to hold it against it. Overall, I'm impressed by Marabu because they actually made a pretty good ink. The last product I tried of them I really did not like, and I gave it a very low score. This ink on my scale of 1 to 10 ranks at a solid 7. It's definitely above average for the amount of ink you get for the price range. I think it's very fair, and I did use about half the bottle. However, I would like to preference that I did use a very ineffective method for doing this illustration. So I probably used twice as much ink as I should have for the creation of this piece. So I don't want to hold that against it too much. As always, the artwork will be available on my Artstation account for a $1 digital download. It's that first link in the description down below. But with that said, that's my opinion, and I'm curious what your guys' opinions are. Do you not only like the illustration I did, but do you guys like the ink? Have you used it in the past, or would you like to try it now that I recommended and brought it to your attention? I'd love to know in the comment section down below. Like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe for more art and animation based content, and remember, I'm J-Rod of BattleBrawlerproductions, and I draw power in my own soul.